Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is okay. And I welcome you once again to this week's deposits on healthy living. Um, I hope that you guys got it, that we are again doing it on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. And welcome. And once again, this week we are honored to have Mrs. Jane Courier, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist who's based in the US. And we're really, truly grateful that she's allowing us to disturb her day and joining us once again. Last week, we spoke about adverse childhood experiences and we spoke about how to cope and how to overcome and how to heal from them. And this week, we're talking about dysfunctional families versus healthy families. What's the difference? What does each mean? And once again, thank you so much, Ms. Jane, and welcome. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Sia. I am happy to be here again today. And talking about relationships is something that I think is so important because right now, me and you are talking, and when people are relating, they are in a relationship, you
Yeah.
know. So I think it's important to have an understanding of what is a relationship and when does it become healthy, when does it become toxic, and where do we learn what a relationship is and what values and ideologies and all different things that we hold or opinions or beliefs that we form in regards to what a relationship is. As a mother myself, as a wife, as a worker, I work, I all these are different relationships. Relationship with my children, relationship with my spouse, relationship with my staff, with relationship with my boss, right? Relationship with the cashier I meet at the store when I'm buying something. So there are relationships everywhere. Um, Relationship with my siblings, relationship with my parents, right? All these different relationships. Now, I know last time we talked about the family dynamics, the adverse childhood experiences, and our family of origin. It shapes a lot of how we view relationships and what kind of relationships we tend to attract, especially intimate relationships. And it's important to ask ourselves, what does a relationship mean to me? What do I look for when I'm relating with a person, right? So when it comes to dysfunctional relationships or dysfunctional families, let's think about, in any relationship, there will be communication. Right now, me and you are having
Communicating.
yeah, we are
Yes.
communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we handling that communication? Am I allowing you to speak? Are you allowing me to speak? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of communication in dysfunctional families, your voice does not matter that much.
Mm.
You know, in dysfunctional families, let's say you want to bring an idea or you want to talk about something that is maybe something you have within your heart, or it's different from maybe whatever everyone else thinks. In dysfunctional families, there is not much room for that.
Mm.
It's very, very dictatorship kind of family where what we say is what goes.
It's my way or the highway.
There you go. It's my way or the highway. If you don't agree with me, then you don't belong here.
Mm.
If you want to bring other ideas that I am not approving, you're not part of this family.
Hmm.
You can be dropped like hot coal in a second in a dysfunctional family if you bring up something that disrupts the status quo within that family.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when it comes to communication, you find that in a dysfunctional family, you just have to go with what is dictated, with what everybody wants. And especially maybe there are certain people within that family who are regarded very highly, and whatever they
Yeah.
say is what goes. Eh,
Would this be the case? I know in a lot of black families, the person that brings in the money, the one who's more successful than others, tends to be the favorite of the family. And then those who don't really have any income are just here. Yeah, we acknowledge you, you're part of the family, but you don't really have a voice.
That is so true. And I love that you have mentioned that, because I wanted to say who are the people who have voice in dysfunctional family. One, it's those who are doing better than others financially.
Mm-hmm.
So those are people who are regarded highly, and their voice is very amplified. Whether everybody agrees with it or not, it doesn't matter. Their voice is what goes. The other people in the dysfunctional family who also have the biggest say in the family is maybe those who are really smart in school, those who
Yeah.
rank lowly in the family. So those are also seen as the most, they're seen as the best whose voice goes, right?
Mm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are also those in the family who probably are maybe, if let's say financial status within the siblings, for example, is kind of similar in a way, maybe the same. Maybe now it now becomes the oldest, the it goes now with the birth. Whoever was born first now
Mm-hmm.
becomes the voice of the family.
Mm.
And the
Is
last
is it is
one,
it safe to say that in dysfunctional families, the members of the family, especially the ones that are not regarded as having a voice or should be listened to, it's easy to feel anxious. It's easy to live with anxiety because you know that your voice doesn't really matter. So even if you have something to say, you may tend to keep it to yourself because you feel unsafe to express your feelings, and that can cause you to feel much more anxious than a person who is in a secure family.
it's very true. It's very true. And this is where as there's a cultural component to it that
Mhm.
I think, based on what I have seen working with clients, that cultural component of the oldest child, for example, they have the biggest say, or they're like the second parent in the family, and their
Mhm.
voice is very strong within the family, and the younger ones, they follow. Their role is to just follow. Oh, you're the oldest, tell us what to do. So they look up to this person. It can have advantages because they may have, they develop these wonderful leadership roles that they have as they get older. However, there is the
Uh,
struggle.
Please excuse me, Miss Jane. There's somebody that I need to mute here. This side. Can you guys please mute yourselves? I'm struggling to see who has their sound on. Okay, I think we're fine now. You can continue.
The oldest kids, they can have this leadership wonderful leadership privileges and wonderful way of mentoring and all that. There's an advantage to it. The younger ones whose voice now is suppressed, they develop a tendency where they maybe second guess themselves. Maybe they look up to others to say it because they're the ones who have others have always said it. So I'm just gonna
mm,
stay here in the corner and just let them speak because after all, I have never exercised that part of my personality within my family where I was raised. So I want to just sit back and observe and people to make decisions for me.
mm,
So it's a dynamic we grow up with. And I'm a that born in a family of 10 myself, and I know how that worked to my advantage.
mm,
However, I also know younger siblings who feel like, how come I can't contribute? How come nobody is listening to me? How come you guys are the ones who are you're making all these decisions on our behalf? And this continues within these family dynamics for a long time because it's so ingrained within the family. It becomes the normal, and it's
mm,
actually normalized to think the oldest child is the one who becomes like the parent and takes the voice of the family.
mm.
It's good to
And
go ahead.
can th- this can be bad for the oldest child because naturally their voice is trusted. They may develop a sick sense of pride. They'll be proud, and they may not be able to see when they are wrong because they are usually trusted, they're usually right. So even when they are wayward, when they are off the mark, it might not be easy for anyone to correct them, to say you are wrong here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And now that's a whole challenge within that family. And if you pause and think about families in our context, you may realize that um, it's still sometimes an issue, even when children become adults. The last born, because I know I had a client some time ago, they're in their 50s, they were the last born. And they tell me, every time I speak to my mom or my siblings, they think I'm a child. It drives me
Mm,
nuts. I feel like I'm when I get to my family, it's like I'm thrown in a pot somewhere, and I'm not seen because
mm,
my voice does not matter. Everybody else's matter. They still see me as a child. So I think sometimes we need to be conscious of these tendencies and how they can impact the other children within the family, because it has been so normalized that the oldest child has the say in the family, especially when parents are not maybe present or they're not available. And of course, now, like we say, those who have money, those who are smart in school, those who are married to rich families, those
yeah.
who are who have connections, it morphs into something dangerous within the family because it kind of creates hierarchies. Like we are classifying you.
Yeah.
Your voice is you're put in these compartments depending on you know what value are you bringing. And it's not based on whether you actually know or you don't. It's based on the outside material things that this
Mm,
person can show to the family to prove their worthiness.
wow. Yeah.
So that's an area to explore within the family system, and become conscious of it, and allow others to talk, because to make it healthy now, it's of course being aware of that, letting younger siblings, older siblings, sharing opinions, trying to see how best to approach an issue based on everybody's input, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of their academics, regardless of whether they have children or not, because sometimes when you don't have children in
Yeah.
families, you can also be seen as, whoo, this one is good for nothing because they don't have
Yes.
a family and all that stuff. So pay attention to it.
You
And
know what this is opening up to me is I know that a lot of our African families, especially, you will meet families where the older siblings are on point, like they're doing well in life, they are succeeding, they have good jobs and whatnot, and then you find the last born or the younger siblings that they are so careless, if I were to put it like that. There are people who don't really pay attention to how the household is run, to how things are done here, or they're not taking any responsibility. But what you're saying now is opening up to me the fact that the older siblings or the parents may have enforced the carelessness on the younger siblings, in the fact that if I'm a younger siblings, I feel like my voice doesn't matter anyway. My contribution, my opinion, or whatever, it's not going to be considered in any case. So why should I even bother having one? Why should I even bother bringing my opinion here? Because it doesn't matter anyway. And if my opinion doesn't matter here, why should I even care enough for me to bring money or care about our home or whatever? Because I'm a nobody, so I might as well stay in my nobody status, and it's comfortable in the nobody status because there is no responsibility that's going to be passed on to me. So, and I don't think that parents are aware of how much they have enforced the behavior that they don't like in the younger siblings.
yeah, it usually subconscious. They may not be aware of it. But the other thing I wanted to add, because that could be part of it, maybe not always, but it can be. And that's a thing to think about too. It's also good to note that parents, the parents who brings up the firstborn, the parents who raise the first children, and even every child in the family is not the same parents. What do I mean by that? Let's say when the firstborn was born, the parents were in their 1920, early 20s, for example, because usually those days parents were having children much younger. Let's say they were in their early 20s. When a 22-year-old is raising a child, it's not the same as a 35, 40-year-old raising a child. Because by the time they have the last borns, they are much older. We also don't know how their mental capacity is in terms of how well prepared they are to have these children. So I
Mm,
don't know, their parenting skills may be different from the way they raise their younger kids.
mhm,
It's also important to put into context that maybe their financial status, we don't know. Whatever it is that's going on during the time they're having these children is different. I was talking to a parent who has four children. One is the oldest is the son, and the others, two girls in between, and the youngest is a boy. So the oldest child has gone no contact with his parents. And after exploring quite a bit about what dynamics could have led into that, the mother was very open, which was amazing to say that when I had our oldest son, I was an alcoholic. I was re-
mm,
I was an alcoholic for quite a bit before I entered into rehab and recovery. So this oldest child was raised by a totally different mother from the mother that raised these other children who were
Mm,
born by the time the mom was already in recovery. She was sober and she was present for these children. So you can see
mm,
it's a whole different dynamic. So it's good to look into consideration the wider context of what is really going on within this family. What position is the parents when they're having these children? How much have they gotten help to be able to
mm.
raise these children? Because a lot of parents, they just parent the same way they were parented by their own, they just
Yeah, pass
paste.
it on. Copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good to look at all those different areas of family dynamics to understand, instead of, because what I have seen people do is they say, maybe they have an alcoholic sibling, or one who is not doing very well financially, and one is, and all these different situations within families, and you will hear people say, I can't understand why they're like this. These are the same parents. We were raised in the same home. How come
Yeah.
they became drunkards? Blah, blah, blah. Well, no, you're raised by different parents. You're raised by different people, different times. So it's not the same parent that raised every child. So I think it's important for people to be aware of that. And we are all different. We may go through something traumatic or abuse or everything, me and you, Sia, but then one of us is able to maneuver that trauma differently, and be able
Mm,
to process it differently, and be able to react differently. But then the other
that's true.
person may actually cope by taking drugs or engaging in different things that are not healthy. So we cannot
That's
say,
true.
oh, how come Jane became this and Sia became this? Well, because Jane and Sia are two different people.
That's very true. I want to actually add on that. I mean, I was looking at reflecting on my own experience the other time of being raised by an alcoholic, abusive father, and looking at the differences between myself and my two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the one who suffered depression, anxiety, PTSD, and all sorts of things. And I'm the second born at home. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and they were not affected the same way as I. And and sometimes I look at it and it seems like I'm the weak one because I was affected the most. But I now know that's not true. It does not mean I am weak. We just different people, and just because they were never diagnosed with depression or anxiety or PTSD does not mean they did not suffer from that as well. They might have suffered, but it was never diagnosed. And I see it even with my own children. I have three kids, and they are very different from each other. And I look at some of the things we've gone through as a family, and how different they experienced those things, even though we were all in the same house, and we were all going through that, and they were going through that as children. I was going through it as an adult. But when I look at how different each one of them have come out of those situations, and I'm like, you could just sit back and appreciate that we are different. We might, it's exactly what you're saying, we may go through the same thing, very same experience, but it affects us totally differently. When you look at it after the ordeal, one has their own way of retelling what happened and how it affected them, and which is totally different from another.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that so many people need to hear, because there's a lot of judgment. The person struggling, because they may look like the only one struggling, they're ashamed. They're actually victim shamed and blamed, and the society sees them as the problem. And
Mm.
that's really sad, because when you go through these experiences and they impact you in one way or the other, and then the children, and this is where I say it's so important to allow, it's okay to, you know, we we are we hear this verse a lot, Ephesians 6, you know, parents, children, honor your
Honor
parents,
your parents,
respect
yeah.
your parents. Then parents are told they need to provide guidance and raise their children according to the ways of the Lord, for those who are Christians. But we only focus on the parents' part, what children are
Yeah.
supposed to do. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
question is, this is in no way whatsoever meant to shame parents or anything, but it's so critical for us to differentiate between holding parents accountable and what disrespect is and what honoring is. Because when we are holding parents accountable and letting them know how their behavior impacted us, there's that shaming, because, oh, parents are not questioned, parents are
Yeah.
not this. So
Mm-hmm.
that is seen as disrespect. And that brings me to the next point. In dysfunctional families, you cannot hold anybody accountable. No boundaries. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot hold nobody accountable. When there is problem or there is a mistake, things are swept under the rug. Things,
Mm.
you don't address them. An issue crops up, it's avoided, and then things just continue to flow. Parents cannot be asked anything. Parents cannot be questioned.
You
Parents
know
can.
how they say black parents, when they have to apologize, they will wait for a moment when everybody's calm, and then they will say, "Go pour yourself some Coca-Cola on in the fridge." That's the
Mm,
apology.
mm, yeah,
Oh, how much did you say you need for that project? And
yeah.
then they transfer the money. There's no apology or taking any responsibility for how much they may have hurt you, or yeah.
Yeah, and your nervous system does not need the money. It does
Yeah.
not need the money to bring it. It needs affirmation, validation, acknowledgement, apology
Mhm.
with changed behavior. Because apology is nothing if nothing
Yeah.
is changing. So when an apology that is not followed by change of behavior, that is manipulation.
True. True.
So it's so important for us as African families to understand that, yes, you cannot give someone money to take away their feelings of emptiness and
Mm.
insecurity that they feel deep within them as a result of things that happened to them growing up.
Mm.
There's no amount of coke and money that will take that away.
Mm.
They just need to know that they can be safe around you, that they can come and talk to you without feeling judged, without being dismissed, without being invalidated.
Mm.
So that safety is very critical in the healing process. Now, in dysfunctional families, these are things that you may not get. And this is where now it becomes critical to look for it elsewhere.
Mm.
Getting help from a therapist, finding a safe person who you trust to help you process that and share with what you're feeling and what you're going through. And they can create that space for you to validate you, acknowledge you, assure you, and just be there as a confidant, because a coke and money will not do any of that. Your nervous system does not know the coke. It knows the safety that it gets by hearing that I am sorry. I was wrong. I did not, I was not present for you when you needed me because I was struggling with addiction. I am very sorry that I was not there to protect you as a baby. I am here
Mm.
now and I am willing to do anything we can do together to forge a healthier relationship. And let me know how I can support you. Ah, who would not want to hear that?
I would want to hear that.
I would want to hear that too. But do you get that from dysfunctional family? I can tell
No.
you it is rare. It can be possible if the parent or whoever caused that harm is willing to get support and learn how they can help. It would be wonderful if they're also open to it. But now
Mm.
most of these people in dysfunctional families are very closed with their shame
Yeah,
that it's almost impossible to penetrate and allow them to be vulnerable.
yeah,
So that's why get it elsewhere. Look for help, professional help, someone trained to deal with trauma and things like that so they can assist.
wow, yeah. That's a very good point, especially for parents that are here today. This thing of I'm a parent, therefore I'm right. It doesn't work. As I think it's more especially for the generation of kids that we have. I'm a 2000.
Mm,
These
mm,
ones they are not afraid
yeah,
to call you into
yeah,
order. They are
yeah.
not afraid to ask you out, to take responsibility and accountability. And we are definitely going to raise broken generations if we think we're going to treat them the same way we were treated. If we're going to um, gaslight them and make them feel like as if they don't matter. We are going to be raising more broken generations. So it's up to us to learn and to say there's no shame in saying I was wrong, my baby. There I was definitely wrong, and I am sorry. And this is how I plan to correct my behavior. And moving forward we can handle this thing this way. But if we just treat them as if they don't matter, they are going to be broken like we are. And we it's going to be a continuous cycle.
Definitely. And this is where parents I've worked with kids and their parents, and usually they bring the child comes for therapy as we call them, identified patient. The
Mhm.
child is having behavior problems, they're having all this. And I'm not saying it is always the parent's fault. However, the challenge we have is this child is acting this way because it's so chaotic in the family, and because these kids have not developed any language for their emotions or even any comprehension of what's happening, they act as they start having behavior problems. They start
Yeah,
struggling with stomachache because to them they don't know what anxiety is. So they are in constant stress because one, they're not feeling safe in the family. Two, there is a lot of chaos and confusion. And that's why and this, I don't want to digress, and that's why you find some parents, oh, I'm staying because of the kids. You
mm,
are harming your children. They can see everything, even when they're
mm,
as little can get. Children are very good at decoding what's actually happening. So it's
yeah,
important for parents to understand that a child's development and for them to safely grow up into children and adults who feel safe within their bodies, they need a safe environment at home. And
mm,
when that lacks, where the spouses are throwing words to each other, it's very hard to know which mood they will bring home. They can quickly kick stuff around, and kids are always like, they don't know what kind of a father they will have for the day. There's all
ish,
that confusion, no stability. And that
mm,
harms the children more than you can think. Now, with that said, it's so important to know that. Yeah, and I wanted to give an example when you mentioned about the apology. You know, as a mom, I remember our son came to me one time, and then that's when I, you know, because I realized the parenting part of it is also a healing part of yourself as a mother, as a
True.
because there are
Yeah.
things your children will say, and it's like, ah, you know, it's like, whoa, because we grew up where maybe we were not questioning our parents. It was their way or the highway, or you didn't have to question nothing because you knew if you do, you're gonna be kicked and slapped or whatever. Now, I remember one time our son, he's now almost 18, but he was about 15, and he, you know, usually they have their chores that they do every evening. And one time he forgot to start the dishwasher, you know, the dishes. And in the morning, I opened the dishwasher to get a cup to have my tea, and the dishes were not clean. I was like, you know, why didn't you start the dishwasher? And my son, and I still remember what he did that day. He told me, Mom, he was very calm. Mom, I have been starting this dishwasher every evening. I don't think you've been noticing when I start, but when I don't start, you're telling me
Hey.
about it. I was like, OMG, dang.
Hey.
So it's like, okay, I'm being corrected here, and I think he's so right. You know, my nervous system was going like, OMG, who are you to tell me what to do? Because
How dare you?
my little baby was screaming, God, I'm being seen as if I am not a good parent. You see, I feel judged. But then,
Yeah.
because of all the healing journey that I've taken over time, I am I realized, wow, I'm feeling triggered. I'm checking in with my body. This is what's happening. I took some deep breaths, and I actually looked at him in the eye and said, you know what? You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. I have not acknowledged when you do the dishes. But
Mm.
now that you didn't, I am very quick to say it. I am sorry.
Ish.
I am sorry. I need to pay more attention to the days when you do what you're supposed to do and say it out loud as well. But then we also joked and said, okay, but now you also need to remember to do this, to start this dishwasher. So what am I saying with this? We need to heal ourselves as parents so that
Mm.
when these kids trigger us, we are also allowing them to safely express themselves within our family. Because I can assure you, when they become adults in their own families, they will be able to safely express themselves to their spouses if they get married, and even their own
Mm.
children, so that we are breaking these cycles of dysfunctional families and bringing healthy families into existence, where when you get in a relationship with someone who is physically abusive or even emotionally abusive, your antennas are out and you can tell this is abuse, and I know it because this is not something that was normalized in my family, and I am going to say no to this.
Mm.
Because you have already helped your child to create that safety within themselves, and you have modeled that for them within your own family.
Yeah. Yeah. This there was a lesson for me there as well in your in the story with your son. And I am gracefully taking the lesson that we don't only say when things are wrong, but we also express loudly outwards when things are done well, and because it's
Sia,
very
can I?
yes, yes, there is.
I hope I'm audible. So there is a research that has been done that actually states that for every criticism you should be able to offer 6 affirmations. Now, this applies in almost all relationships, and the reason is that I'm sure you understand the way the mind is. The mind has got a tendency of focusing on negatives, or being drifted towards negativity. So you find that in most cases we are good at saying wrong things, or
Yeah.
being so observant of things. It could be in a relationship, in a marriage, a parent-child relationship, even colleague relationship. Okay, so according to what the researchers have come up with, they are saying that, or they say that the conclusion is that always focusing on the negatives, or just criticizing drains, and it mostly makes people feel less of themselves. Okay, so in this case, they've suggested that in as much as we need criticism, it is important to proceed, or to make sure that for every criticism you offer in whatever thing that you've offered, be sure that you look for at least 6 other good things that you're going to follow that criticism with, so that it not just be an issue of you are wrong, you did this, you did that, but I also realize that, oh, so at the time that this person was criticizing me for this, they were not doing it out of malice, or out of just a mere issue of just they're not against me per se. They did this because there was need they saw the need for me to change in this area. So much so that
Mm.
your affirmations are going to be in a way, compensate for the hurt they might have felt the time you criticize them. I don't know if that makes sense. So in a relationship, ensure that you do not just say you are wrong, or I do not like this, or this and that. But what is it that you also saying that reinforces your reinforces your love for them. Okay, this person
Mm.
needs to feel loved. Okay, so now what is it that makes them feel that? Because as a matter of fact, criticism, there's just a way it makes people feel unloved, or feel like you're against them. So what is it that about whatever they are doing that can make them feel that whatever you said, you didn't say it out of ill, like out of being just being negative. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Darius.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, those positive gratitude, appreciating people, super, super important. And, bringing it to the family dynamic, this is where it needs to start early on in children's life, because their brain is like sponge. It's absorbing a lot of stuff at a very young age. And when we make it a practice to say these things and make it more deliberate, because the way we are wired as humans is we are always trying to do things to protect ourselves. We tend
Mm.
to always look for things that will help us feel safe, and sometimes gratitude may not be the most ideal way to feel safe. Usually, you're looking
Yeah.
for a mistake or something wrong to fix it so you can try to prevent anything bad from happening. So, for gratitude and saying good things and appreciating people, we need to be very conscious of it and make it a practice, because the more we
Mm.
do it, the more natural it becomes, so that we can engage with it more often with our children and others.
Yeah, it's actually very sad that what comes naturally to us is the criticism more than the appreciation. It's so easy to express our displeasure when things are not going well, more than it is for us to say thank you that you have been doing this thing so well for so many times. It's like, I don't know whether it's entitlement or what, but it's like, yeah, that's how things are supposed to be. You know, when things are done well, it's like, yeah, there's nothing wow about it. That's how it's supposed to be. And then the one day when things are not done well, or they're not going well, that's when we find words to express how this is inconvenient, how this is not, it's how it's supposed to be. I guess it really takes intention, you know, to be intentional, to express verbally the same way you do, and not just with a nod, not just with a thumbs up, not just with I see you, but I'm not going to express kind of attitude, but also like verbally to say, I appreciate that you're doing this very well, and you do it without complaining. You do it consistently, and it's admirable. And then when a person makes a mistake and we have to criticize them or whatever, because you have been consistent in affirmations, the criticism doesn't, it won't come across as she hates me, she doesn't like me, she's out to get me, she's doing this to hurt me, because you have built the foundation of positivity and affirmations. Even when you criticize, it will be accepted, and well accepted, in the fact that I know this person's heart. There's a friend of mine who always says so. Even when we're not talking, even when we make each other angry, you must rely on the fact that you know my heart. And she always says the same thing to me. She says, you know what, you are one person who's so brutal in their honesty, and you are not afraid to share with me what you think about me at any point. And any point when I'm messing up, I know I can come to you and you will tell me that, hey, you are messing up, girl. And you know what, as much as your words would hurt me, I know I am always able to accept that this is Sia. And I know Sia's heart. I know Sia loves me. So whatever that you're going to say to me that's going to hurt me, it's always buffered with the fact that I know this person, I know their heart. So I guess it's a lesson to apply on every relationship, not just in this particular friendship, not just in our, my parent-child relationships, but in each and every relationship, to be verbal, to be positive and verbal and oral, in my compliments. And so that a person can trust that I know Sia's heart. Therefore, even if she can be brutally honest with me about my mess ups, I know her heart, she means well.
Yeah, definitely. It's critical. And the more we hear about it now, and especially for those with young children, young relationships, young families, starting out, it's never too late, even for those who have older kids and all that, to learn. So it's making it a practice. And of course, I always tell people, extend compassion to yourself, that self-compassion, because you will lose your temper sometimes with your kids. I have. And
Yeah.
just reminding myself that when I do, I can still go back. And that's where, when you learn to apologize, when in a healthy family, people lose temper, and they do. They don't sweep that under the rug and now start giving a cook. In healthy families, you may lose your temper, say things you probably should not have said, but then you come to your senses, you go and acknowledge that what I did was not okay, and I was not supposed to say that to you. Please forgive me. So that is the difference between the dysfunctional and the functional or healthy families, because you have made a mistake, you can acknowledge it, and there's no shame around apology. In dysfunctional family, there's a lot of shame. People carry a lot of shame, and it's almost impossible to penetrate these people's hearts, and to and as I wrap up, the other thing I wanted to mention about dysfunctional versus healthy family is, in dysfunctional families, there is a lot of connection through crisis. You know, when there's no crisis, a lot of times people are going about their business, maybe rarely communicating. There isn't much to talk about. But as soon as there's a crisis, oh, there's someone who is an alcoholic in the family, we need to come together because they've been drinking too much, and we now need to figure out what needs to be done to help them. Then, oops, everybody comes together, even those who have not talked for the last 1 year or 6 months. It's like, whoa, yes, let's fix this person, because you're coming together to fix somebody else. And you don't address issues, you just come together when there are crises.
Hmm.
And in healthy families, you realize that there is communication throughout. When there is a crisis and when there is no crisis, there is a lot of healthy communication going on. In dysfunctional family, there's a lot of cliques. People form cliques because
Hmm.
me and Sia, we tend to gossip together. We tend to to not like one sibling. Then we come together to form a team that hates the same people. So
Hmm.
there is that kind of cliques that are not healthy because it's divide and conquer when it comes to dysfunctional families. In healthy families, you know, we can agree to disagree. We can hold different opinions. We can have different values. We can talk. We can have all these different sets of things, and everyone's values and opinions are respected. I can easily tell you, you know, see, I don't really agree with that, but I respect it. You know, I
Hmm.
respect your opinion. You know, if that's how you see it and that makes sense to you, that's okay.
Hmm.
However, for me, I have a whole totally different opinion when it comes to that matter. And I'm not going to force you to, you know, we can agree to disagree, we can compromise. You know, given that these are the two different ideas we have, what can we do to compromise and come to a space where we are feeling your hand and I'm hard, even if
Hmm.
we may not always have the same exact opinions. So that's what a healthy relationship or a healthy family looks like. But
Hmm.
dysfunctional, it's like, Sia, you're different than us. My clique, let's join. Sia is out. So it's really learning to evolve, to grow, to break these cycles, to teach ourselves. We may not have been exposed to what is healthy, but we have
Hmm.
an obligation, because we are now adults, to take on that responsibilities, because it's for our own good, it's for the good of those who come after us, and it's for the good of our own well-being. So I think it's always important to ask yourself, why do I need to do this? Why does it
Hmm.
matter? Because you need to remind yourself you're not doing it for your parents, you're not doing it for your siblings, you're doing it for you. And when you're able to attract healthy relationships because you've done your own work, then it is a gain for you. Whether other people agree to join you along that journey of healing or not, that's okay too. Remember, it takes one person to
Hmm.
break the cycle in the family. You may be labeled, you may become the scapegoat in the family because you're going against the unhealthy norms within the family. However, you're already now paving a path for a whole different kind of generation that does not subscribe to that kind of dysfunction. And
Hmm.
while that journey is not always easy because it can be very lonely and requires a lot of grieving, because you may lose some relationships that you would wish you had, but because they're not healthy for you and because your healing process is happening and you already see the dysfunction, it can be very lonely because those who are in the dysfunction still think that's what is healthy, and you may have to do it on your own as you attract now relationships that feel true to you, that are authentic, where you can
Hmm.
be vulnerable and you can feel safe. If that is family with the brand relation or not, it's okay to give yourself permission to allow yourself to evolve and attract healthy relationships. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And maybe to just add that just because you came from a dysfunctional family doesn't mean you should have a your own dysfunctional family. Healing is possible, and I guess these talks that we have, the sessions, it's part of making you to realize that there is a better way. You know, things can be done better. You can decide today. Doesn't matter how old you are, whether you are a parent or you're not. You can decide today that, you know what, I want something better. I want something better for myself. I want something better for my children that I'm going to have or the children that I have, and decide to start your healing journey. So just because you came from a home where it was just dysfunction doesn't mean that the dysfunction should continue. And there is no better day to start than today. If you were listening here and you've picked up that maybe I come from a dysfunctional family, it is a good day to start your healing journey. There is a comment on Facebook. I'm going to show it here on the screen. I don't know if you want to give a word to that. Jennifer says she wasted 5 years ignoring the red flags, not admitting that these things exist. Is truly not real. Not admitting these things exist is truly not reality. You can't fix a cheater, a psychopath, a narcissist. It's as simple as you can't take blood from stone. My husband started getting frequent night calls. When I asked, he just waved off those calls as unimportant. At some point, I could take no more of his lies. I decided I deserved to know what was going on. Someone on here referred me to this genius guy who helped clone his phone without physical. Okay, the comment got cut off at some point. But it sounds like Jennifer has been a victim of being cheated on and many other things. I don't know if you want to say something to that. You are on mute. You're muted.
I have a feeling that that's a spam comment from somebody, that person, but I would address it for those who are in such relationships. But the thing with that is, observe the patterns, observe the behavior in the relationship and what's happening in your marriage or in your own family. Sometimes when you have grown up in environment where abuse is normalized, whether it's emotional, physical, or even sexual, we tend to attract similar relationships where there is domestic violence, and we normalize it because, after all, my mom was abused, was a lot of wife battering. She stayed. Well, then I need to stay. So our ability to sense danger becomes impacted because red flags, because we grow up with so many red flags. The red flags in now our adult relationships are actually don't look red flags because that's what I grew up with. So how come is red flag when I saw it all my life? So it's very confusing when you have been wounded and abused for a very long time, from the time you're little until you're an adult. And this is where I highly recommend getting help, because there's a lot of trauma bonds that form as a result of being abused yourself, and now you attract an abuser, and you're like magnets. You connect so strongly, but this connection is based on abuse and trauma and a lot of violence, because that is very appealing. It's actually an addiction. It's like, whoa, today we have not fought. So you start looking for ways to create, discomfort and create pressure and all these things, because it's like, whoops, my the cortisol, the hormones that associate with, pain and all that. Ooh, they are very low today. So I'm looking for more cortisol to take from my spouse or whatever. So it becomes very, very strong, but strong in a very unhealthy way. So sometimes it seriously takes getting help for you to be able to break this. And
Yeah.
there are times when, it may only need talking to a few friends and them telling you, oh, this is not normal. You were beaten the other day. You went to the police station and you withdrew the case because you feel like, oh, he's still the father of my children. I want to protect him.
Yes.
But the thing is, girl, you're being abused. And some men definitely now are also being abused. So it's so important to have someone you trust who can help you come back to your senses so that you can be able to see things clearly, and act accordingly,
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I would say to Jennifer that
Maybe we can
it is
get some
possible
comments
to heal
from some gentlemen.
from. There is. There is. Okay, I don't know. Did you hear what Teres was saying?
No, I only had the word comments. I didn't see it. I didn't hear anything
Yeah,
else.
also I missed it. But yeah, there was only one comment on Facebook, and there are no questions or comments from Google Meets. Yeah, but yeah, I was saying that what I would say to Jennifer is that it is possible to heal um, completely from these things. It takes time. It's a journey, but once you have acknowledged how much they've affected you, and you start and intentionally committing to healing, you are going to be fine. You're going to heal. So there is a hand whose hand is up. Sorry, I'm not seeing the hand, Darius. Where's the hand? Okay, the person who has a question, because I can't see the hand on the screen. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask, please. Doesn't seem like we have a hand. All right. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us this evening. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that as my I feel like this was my session. Like I hope that you also got your lessons. I feel like for me it was mine. Like it was to point my lessons, my blind spots, my whatever, and I'm truly edified. And I want to thank you, Ms. Jane, so much for the session. Very informative. I hope that people that joined also got their fair share of encouragement and lessons. And until next week, we will call it a night. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me. Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That is. D. Let me end the broadcast.